Hello everyone, we are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And it's time for round 4 of the 4th annual multi-topic extravaganza. Vince, are you ready to answer some more questions?
Yes!
You folks asked us copious amounts of questions. We sure appreciate them. There's some really interesting stuff here. And as I've said before, or at least really interesting stuff so far, because as I've said before, we've not pre-read these, we've not proofed these. We thought it would be really cool to come to these completely cold.
Yeah, typos and everything.
And so that's what we're doing. So we're going to jump back to the comment stuff now, and we're going to begin with Superhero Enthusiast. Hello, Superhero Enthusiast.
Hey, man, what's up?
Enthusiast wants to know how many typed pages does a 30-minute rewind typically translate to? About 6 or 7. And lately rewinds tend to be anywhere between 8 and 10. Because, well, I say lately, I'm on hiatus right now, but when I've been doing them, I've been doing like more recent movies that I feel like just I have more to say about, and they're more complex, and there's just a lot of stuff to do with them. So lately rewind's been closer to 40-45 minute stuff, and sometimes even a little bit longer. But yes, the typical kind of half-hour ones, about 6 to 7.
All right.
Do you think ratings and reviews actually provide any real value, and if so, what's the best rating scale?
Nah.
No, not at all?
I don't know. I do think there is some kind of value. I do think that if you were to look at a particular critic that you tend to like the benefit of criticism is, one, it helps police the standards. So in other words, saying that not necessarily for all people, but for people who listen, it's like watching game footage, you know. It's you've made the piece, now you hear what the educated opinion is on it, and then you can say, well, I understand why the majority of critics are saying this. Why? Because I get that there's an inconsistency in my movie. Maybe I should think about this the next time I make a movie. Yada yada. Now, for the general public, I think that it's great because if you tend to find that you like the same thing that a particular critic likes, and you tend to have the same sensibilities, then that can help guide you toward movies you like.
That's a really good point. Ratings are cold, they're methodical, they're heartless. When you just look at a rating, all you're getting is a number out of a certain number, and that that's it. You know, it's with no context. Mm-hmm. So I don't think ratings mean anything without a review.
Right.
And that maybe that goes without saying, but it's been interesting. It's been interesting over the years as I've been doing Rewind, and of course that's really the only show that I do consistent ratings. Every now and again I'll throw a number out, but for the most part, I feel like I want to do a really well-considered analysis before I begin to even put a number on it, and the number is in some ways the least important part. I think they should be part of summary. Like I think it's what I mean is summary of the analysis or the review. I think it's
like in conclusion.
In conclusion, yeah, and so now that you've heard everything I have to say, if I have to kind of truncate it down to a score, this is the score I'm giving it. But you've heard why I think that. I really encourage people not to take too much stock in score, and especially with my stuff. I'm sure everybody's different. You know, like SF Debris has been known to say he kind of almost wishes he didn't do a score at all. Like the score is the least important part. It's not he kind of does it because it's obligatory. Listen to the analysis. The score is somewhat arbitrary, and it's really hard not to be arbitrary with it. Something I really encourage people not to do is to compare scores too much to other movies. I've gotten this sometimes where people are like, "Well, you gave this movie this, but this movie this. That seems really inconsistent." And it's like, well, the number was chosen based on the analysis I gave. I can't really look down a list of every movie I've ever reviewed and make sure that okay, well, if this is a 3, then this should be a 3.5 based on this other review. I don't think you could ever be completely consistent with it, and I think it's impossible. As far as the best rating scale, obviously I prefer the 4-star system. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think mid-range 2 is is average. 1 is below average. 0, you shouldn't have paid the money to go see it. 3 is just is above average, really solid. And then 4 is spectacular, and then the points in between.
5 is Spider-Man.
And then the points in between help you to gauge it even more specifically. So a 2.5 is just above average, and a 1.5 is just below average. I like that system a great deal more than a 5 or a 10-star system.
I like your system. I'm not saying it's the only way, but here's something I do want to point out real quick, is that you have a system that's very defined objectively. You get to say, I found things good about it, I found things wrong with it, and this influences my opinion, or my scoring. But then you have, like, you go to the Netflix scoring that they have the 5-star, and that's fairly common as well.
Yeah, sure.
Where they had, you hated it, you didn't like it, you liked it, you really liked it, and you loved it. Now, the reason I bring that up is that I'm not saying it's better than the 4-point system. In fact, I kind of agree with Captain Logan that the 4-point system works. But when you have this system, what you're essentially saying is that I'm basing this more on how I feel than what objective information I have about the piece.
That just depends on what kind of review you're writing.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's the reason we don't use 4-star on the Feelin' It Show. That's why we just do the sign flip. Where it's just right now, impulsively, I just saw the thing. Would I recommend you go see it or not? Not here's critically, now that I've really well considered it. It's more how I feel after a first viewing than it is, okay, now I've had a long time to really sit down and analyze it because you don't know that show. So it depends on the kind of review you're doing too.
And I mean, and also just to kind of put some interesting, or just to echo you here, final thoughts on this.
Yeah.
You have to read the review in order for the score to make sense.
Yeah.
So if I just give you a score, you don't know whether or not I'm doing it based on how I feel or based on what I saw within the film itself and whatever training I've had.
You don't even know. You can't even be sure if the person saw it. Yeah. I mean, why just trust people at face value? Did you even see the film?
Yeah, there are some movies on Netflix that I've given a 1 to that I haven't even seen. Because I'm not going to watch that.
I'm just saying professional reviewers.
Yeah, I know.
There is a certain amount of, we need you to prove that you've seen it. I mean, it sounds maybe a little bit callous, but we all know that there have been people over the years that have done that, where they'll review a movie they didn't even see. It's a job, and they go, okay, what's the popular consensus? I know I'm supposed to say this, so this is what I say. Or even I'm trying to stand out, so I say this other thing. Or they didn't even see it, or they weren't really paying enough attention to it.
Or they're
when
paid
they
to have a good opinion about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which does happen.
And that's just kind of dishonorable.
Yeah.
And I know I said I'm not going to answer every question from everybody necessarily, but Enthusiast just had some good ones, and we'll knock this one out quick. Do you consider the Punisher a superhero or supervillain who happens to have his own book?
Antihero.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, I would say it depends on whose book he's in. His own book, he'd be a superhero, and in another book, he'd be a villain. So,
what are your? This is that. Okay, this is that guy whose name is always in weird. Anyway, we've had this guy on a lot. I just don't know how to say his name. What are your favorite comedians working right now and of the past?
George Carlin, always one of the big ones. Patton Oswalt, Bill Burr's really high up there. Oh man, Bill Burr, I love Bill Burr. Louis C.K.'s pretty big right now. I do like Mark Maron. I don't like his show as much as his stand-up. And there's a couple more I should think of. Oh, Brian Regan I like a lot. Who do you got?
Brian Regan's my favorite. Jim Carrey is up there. And I mean Jim Carrey more for movies, but his stand-up's pretty good too. Yeah. And he hasn't done nearly enough, but his stand-up's pretty good too.
I kind of wish he could go back to stand-up.
I do too. I think now would be a really good time for him to go back to stand-up.
Yeah, especially with Dumb and Dumber coming out.
I like Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's maybe an obvious thing to say, but I like Bill Cosby.
I mean, I almost feel like Bill Cosby gets kind of overshadowed nowadays.
Have you seen his most recent? He came back and did one in 2013.
Oh, no, I didn't.
He did a Comedy Central special. Bill Cosby. At 77 years old. It's fantastic. I like Drew Carey's stand-up. And he doesn't do enough of that anymore either. But I always thought his was funny. I don't know that it would be funny now that he lost all that weight. Most of what he did was self-deprecating because he was heavyset, and those jokes were really funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, those are a few.
I like John Panette.
I like John Panette too.
He's pretty good. And there was somebody else. Just John Panette came to mind. Anywho. Yeah.
Okay.
Richard Pryor is always good. I mean.
Yeah, I like Richard Pryor. Well, I don't know. Again, I tend to like his movies more than stand-up. I don't know. I felt like Richard Pryor kind of relied too much on just like raunchy language and stuff, where like it would take him too long to get to a punchline because everybody was laughing at just the fact that he was using coarse language, and I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm not even saying that I couldn't deal with the coarse language. I'm just saying that I was waiting for him to get to the part that was actually funny, because there's usually something clever in there, but it's kind of embedded underneath all of this profanity.
I feel like that's the natural progression of a comedian, though, is that eventually you start pandering to the audience because you get more approval. Like Brian Regan's really funny, but he starts doing his voice that he always does, and I'm not good at it, but he does the I see, it's a planet of them.
It's a planet of them.
And he does this voice that's really funny, but then as his career has progressed, he starts doing it more in places that make less sense. So
his late '90s stuff is really funny, and he's never topped that. He's never gone back to getting as funny as that. But yeah, it doesn't get much better than Brian Regan for me. That's definitely my favorite thing. Connor Rayners, with the success of Wolverine standalone movies, is there any X-Men character you would like to see get his or her own standalone? Great question.
Magneto?
Not me anymore.
Yeah, I'm cool with what we have. I wouldn't mind seeing a Magneto movie.
It's just like I feel like First Class was such a Magneto character study. I don't see the point in doing that now. And I think a lot of people would kind of revolt because it's like the last several X-Men movies, or the last couple X-Men movies, have been very Magneto Professor X character pieces, and a lot of people's opinions tend to be, let's get some more blood in there and flesh out some other characters. So it's like, it's been Wolverine, it's been Professor X, and it's been Magneto. We know these characters really well now after about 7 films. So let's move on and maybe do some other solos. But yeah, I would like to see, I don't know, right off, because everybody we've had so far, I can't really imagine anybody having really enough character presence to carry a whole movie yet, because we haven't gotten enough from them. So like, I'd love to eventually see like Cyclops remade and then maybe him get his own film, but I don't know what it would look like yet because we don't even have a casting. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, does anybody jump out?
I think you could make an interesting Beast movie. I don't think they would do it, but I think they could make it. One that would be interesting to me. For the Magneto thing, I wouldn't want to see him modern day. I'd want to see him in the concentration camps. There was a pretty decent series that they put out about him that I think would be a decent movie.
I think Gambit has already been greenlit.
Yeah, I could see a decent Gambit movie.
And that's one I would have jumped to. And I'd love to see Nightcrawler.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But, I mean, X2 had such a strong character arc for Nightcrawler. Well, I mean, an interesting
and I love X2, but a good characterization, but he didn't get nearly enough to do. I mean,
yeah, it's true.
And I'm not even knocking that movie for that, because I sort of expected that he would come back and we get to do more with him, and that never happened. So that's where me saying, let's give Nightcrawler a movie. I
want to see Whedon do a Kitty Pryde movie.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
I think that would be great.
That's a really good point.
And,
or at least Kitty Pryde with maybe some other characters, Maybe a Kitty Pryde-centered X-Men. I guess the thing is, a lot of it for me is like, let's get an X-Men movie that has still an ensemble cast, but focus on another character, I have a hard time getting really excited about solo X-Men movies. It's more just, let's focus on somebody else.
Yeah, because I almost feel like when you have an ensemble cast, people feel like you have to use everybody for everything. And, you can have your subplots, but you can focus on a main character. I mean, there's a reason
I feel like Guardians kind of did that. I mean, Star-Lord has the main character arc in that. I feel like everybody else definitely has one, but there's a reason that he has a flashback at the beginning and nobody else does. I mean, he is our through character. It also helps that he's our human character, and so he's our eyes in. But he's also part of that world. So I mean, I feel like that's just a really good example of what you're talking about. Yeah. Is like Guardians is the Star-Lord movie, but then everybody else has stuff to do too.
And next one's kind of the Wolverine movie, but
then everybody else is kind of there, and that's okay, except we keep doing it.
Yeah. How many times are we gonna make Wolverine and the X-Men?
Are you like a Bible pounding preacher that loves X-Men?
Because that's how they sound.
You
people who hit books.
Well, Vince just got totally incoherent. I don't know what happened there. All right. McCaffrey, do you guys think we will ever get a fully cohesive DC live action universe? We'll see.
I have no idea.
Who knows? We'll see.
I think they're gonna eventually.
They're working on it.
Yeah, they'll attempt, even probably beyond this one. Who knows?
And you know,
I don't care. They'll try.
Yeah, I mean that's what they think they're doing. We'll see how it goes. A Boyce, what do you think of DC's recent future Batman covers and the possible return of Damian Wayne? Well, this was a while back. That's actually started happening already. I guess we'll see how it goes. As I've said 1,000 times, I'm not the biggest Damian fan. I am hoping the way this whole thing is ending is Batman learning how to let go, because bringing Damian back this fast is really gimmicky. But if we're kind of bringing back his reanimated corpse through the Lazarus pit, and it's not really him, and that kind of thing. That's what I want it to be. I want it to be like Batman having to deal with, okay, he's been trying to bring him back, and that's just not going to work.
It's like Batman and the Monkey's Paw.
I don't know what that means.
It's a reference to a short story where Monkey's Paw brings somebody back from the dead, and they're all mutilated and stuff and creepy.
Yeah. Well, and of course that's what the Lazarus pit has always kind of been about. But like I don't know. I haven't liked this whole thing with Batman. I mean, I'm not heartless. I'm not saying that Batman shouldn't mourn the death of Damian Wayne, but there's just been all of this stuff about him, like, going way too close to the edge and getting kind of crazy in his obsession with trying to bring him back from the dead. I don't feel like that's Batman. I have a really tough time with that. And as I always say, there are way too many different variations on Batman happening all at the same time, and Snyder's Batman wouldn't do that. And Snyder's Batman seems to be the definitive New 52 Batman. Whether you like that as much as other previous incarnations, it's definitely, I think, the best thing we have right now. So I don't love that. So I'm hoping that, you know, if we've done this extreme of characterization for Batman, this guy needs to learn to let go. So I really hope we're not bringing Damian back. Partly because I don't think that maybe this is unfair. I don't think. Well, okay, I don't think this is unfair. I don't think that version of Batman that we're getting with the Batman and Robin stuff right now deserves to have his son return to him, because of some of the really awful things he's tried to do to bring him back, with like kidnapping Frankenstein and stuff like that. I just couldn't deal with that. It's really strange. So so I don't know. I hope it doesn't happen. I think that guy needs to learn a lesson. That particular Batman has a lesson to learn.
As long as Batman looks like Gregory Peck, I think it's a good omen. Get it?
No.
No? Okay.
No. Robert Hammond. There's a lot of fan outcry for Ben Affleck to direct the solo Batman film, but Affleck has other directing projects in the pipeline. Do you think the reason that the solo Bat film is set for 2019, I didn't know that, is to give Affleck the time to get those other films out of the way to direct? Yeah, sure. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. That's probably why. Yeah, it does seem kind of strange that they would put off a solo Batman film that far, I guess. But also, they have other stuff in the queue. I mean, remember, we're not getting Batman vs Superman until 2016. That's only 3 years after that, and there's supposed to be some other stuff in between. I mean, we're doing a Justice League film in between there, and I know that DC has been like this for so many years now. They're still like this, regardless of the fact that we got Man of Steel starting all of this, and we've got movies coming out. It still seems like every time I turn around, the dates and what projects are happening and stuff is all mulled around and things. Like, it seems like you almost have to keep track of it day to day to even be sure what's happening. I mean, I know there's supposed to be a Wonder Woman film. I know there's supposed to be other things. So, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, well, I guess they don't want to do 2 movies in a year. I don't know why.
I think DC should set some short-term goals.
Yeah, but I also think that if they're doing that because Ben Affleck is directing, then that's maybe not a bad choice, because I would like to see the Ben Affleck direct the Batman film.
That sounds like a good idea.
I think that's a really good idea, and I always thought, I was always with the bandwagon that said, why would you bring in Ben Affleck if it wasn't to direct? So.
And for those of you who are like, I don't like Ben Affleck, go watch some of his more recent movies. They're pretty good.
Let's see. If you had the creative authority at Warner Brothers, how would you place shows like Arrow, Flash, Gotham, and Constantine all together in the Man of Steel DC cinematic universe? Why could it work? Why could it not work? And reasons it should be that way or not be that way. Well, we know now for sure that that's not happening. We know now for sure that, and it's funny because I saw an interview with Stephen Amell where he was like, "I'm so glad I don't have to answer that question anymore." But yeah, so I mean, like those continuities are their own thing now for sure. And if we get a Flash or a Green Arrow in the DC cinematic universe, it's not going to be the guys on television. So, but to answer the question, like, should it have happened? I'm kind of glad it's not happening that way. personally, because I think that part of it is, I think that you tie the hands too much of the people making the movies when there's like this, when there are these major TV shows where they can put out stuff every single week, and then you've got to deal with that continuity. I think starting with movies and going the other way, where you make TV shows, but they're like with more minor characters and stuff, is like they're doing with Marvel. I think that's totally cool. But I think doing it the other direction, where we've got some major characters, Green Arrow and Flash now, major enough characters, that and bringing in so many pretty major characters, especially the villains and stuff, that like, I don't know, you're creating this whole continuity where people who aren't watching those things will go to the theater, and now there's this whole continuity they're supposed to have been keeping up with.
Yeah, I mean, why force what you can do on the big screen into a little narrow passage? I mean, why? I mean, I understand people like the TV shows. I mean, I like the TV show.
Oh yeah, I love the TV shows. Yeah.
But why tie their hands? I mean, that's a perfect way to say it. I don't even really have anything to add.
So I'm just glad that's not happening. If they were doing it, how should they have done it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what exactly the process would have to be or whatever, because it's like, okay, well, those shows are already there.
Well, cast the same people, shoot it, then cut it up and serialize it in the show.
I guess what you do is you take Flash and or Green Arrow and you'd put them in the Justice League movie somewhere, and then that's how you would connect them. I think you would want to not let them look too separate for too long, I guess is the only thing I would say. But ultimately, I'm kind of glad it's not happening. And also, real quick, I'll say that I'm glad that Marvel, being what Marvel is, has one big continuity that's covering all of these different things. That it's in movies, it's in TV, it's about to be in have Netflix shows. I know that we have other Marvel properties that have their own universes right now. There's just nothing Marvel can do about that because these other companies had those already. But DC has always been more of a separate character. So it's a lot harder for me to get irritated about multiple DC universes. And also, the nice thing about it, I mean, I know that even still, we have this kind of cohesive DC universe with Warner Brothers, with CW right now, where like the only people they don't have is Batman and Superman, and everybody else they can use, pretty much. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of a stupid point, because it's not like Flash and Green Arrow are separate or anything. But the nice thing about it is, if one's not very good, you've got another one to fall back on. You know, and I hope they're both great. You know, and they're also going to be very, very different sorts of things, because it seems like the CW stuff is not taking itself too seriously. And I mean, it was, you know, it seemed pretty super serious at the beginning, but I think that it's lightening up a bit. And when we get into, you know, Batman vs Superman, I think it's still going to be a pretty kind of heavy, serious thing. I'm not saying that there's no fun to be had. I'm just saying that Man of Steel was a pretty heavy, serious kind of movie. So,
I'm with you.
So I don't know. Different flavors, yeah. I mean, it's always good.
I like cherry and strawberry.
I prefer strawberry. Yeah. Anyway, moving right along. Give me 1 second here. Tory GNR1, this is Dan.
Hey, Dan.
Hi, Dan. Which historical person or event do you think would make for an interesting comic book story? Superhero or otherwise?
Pompey. Why not?
I would love to see
There's a
the
movie, so
superhero story set in Pompey.
That'd be kind of neat. Why not?
It's like you have some like Roman character who has no superpowers, but like puts on a cape. Well, Romans had capes, so whatever. But like,
see,
and then
it's natural.
Then, like, goes and tries to stop Pompey, but he can't because he's like one dude with a cape, and he's like Maxi Zeus. He like thinks that he's that he is a god, but he's not. And then no.
Bear with me. I have a great idea.
Oh, okay, all right,
for a
sure.
historical comic book.
Yes.
How about the 300 Spartans? They could totally make that into a comic.
Well, but I think that you're onto something here. I didn't immediately jump on anything because there's so much of this happening right now. Historical fiction in comics is huge right now. Like, you've got, you know, superhero is still kind of the #1 thing, and you've got a lot of science fiction, but then like historical pieces set in like supernatural pieces set in different kind of histories, especially mysteries, are really in right now. It's really hard to latch on to anything that's not being done or hasn't been done already.
Anything involving war, because war comics have been around forever. It's visually pleasing because there's a lot of action. I think anything that can have, I think folklore is something that works really well, or even like folk tales. Like for those of you who have heard of the songs Stagger Lee, because there's a billion of them. Stack-o-lee, Stag-o-lee, Stack-er-lee, Stagger-lee. And there is the Stagger-lee comic book or graphic novel. So if you use folklore, it has some basis in history, but it's really an exploration of a topic and how it's changed over the years.
But can you think of any like big historical period or event that hasn't been tackled yet that ought to be tackled?
I have no idea. It's really hard to just pick something out of my head without really sitting down to think about it. I mean, I don't know, maybe it exists. I haven't seen the Pompey. I haven't seen it. I don't know. And I think that it would be easier to do alternate history stuff in comic books than it would be to do historical
yes,
stuff.
Of course, but he's just talking about setting things in a period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I missed something.
Yeah, he's just talking about setting things in a period.
Oh. Well, from any particular period,
just saying what period.
No idea.
Yeah. Like I said, there's just already so much. I mean, like, you know, I tend to enjoy things that are set in either like late 1800s England, but it seems like we can't do that without doing Jack the Ripper. I seem to not be able to read a noirish mystery story set then that doesn't have Jack the Ripper in it or talk about him a lot. But then also like I don't know, like Roaring Twenties, or you know,
something set in the 40s that doesn't have to be in World
specifically
War II.
World War II. Like I love the World War II period, getting away from World War II. And I mean, I know we do World War II constantly, but it's I don't know. For me, it's hard not to get kind of jazzed about the culture and lore from that period. And I always get excited about 60s. I don't know why.
I'd like to see stuff that turns that sort of 50s affluence and some of that perceived innocence that you saw all over TV that was advertised quite a lot. I'd like to see something turning that on its ear. It's been done before, but I think that can be done a little bit more.
The Jeff, my stepdad, wants to know what we think about Brack as a superhero or Brack versus Space Ghost. Well, I love to see a follow-up to the DC Space Ghost comic because Brack is like the one big thing that wasn't dealt with in that.
Which the Zorak stuff was really interesting.
The Zorak stuff was great, but I mean, I would love to have seen Alex Ross's take on Brack.
Yeah, I'd want them to come back and have another good story as opposed to just let's do another one. But of course, I don't know if they would ever come back to it without that.
Yeah, well, and in some ways, it's kind of nice that it was just a miniseries and that they didn't try to keep doing them, because you've seen that not work a lot, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, here's this great thing, we got to do follow-ups because it was popular. I kind of like that we just have this one really good Space Ghost comic and we don't have to chance it not working. Then again, it does have I mean, I love that book, but it does have a little bit of that reboot origin thing of now he's Space Ghost at the end and you're kind of frothing at the mouth to see him actually get to do an adventure as the Space Ghost we all know. So, yeah, it would be nice if they'd done one more of those, but I also would not be opposed to just humorous Brack comics. And, I mean, like, I'm just a big Brack fan, and I know, like it's a small thing now, and it doesn't come back very much, but, like, IDW's been doing the Cartoon Network comics, and I've been kind of waiting for a Space Ghost or Brack thing to come out of that. Then again, I don't know what all they're allowed to grab onto, because I know Space Ghost is a Warner Brothers property, so it might be that they don't even have access to it.
Indeed.
But then again, I thought Powerpuff Girls was too, so I'm not sure. I could be wrong about that. Okay, Mr. Hase88, which superhero movie that has been announced are you most looking forward to? Well, we've got everything from this year now, besides Turtles, which comes out tomorrow, and I'll be seeing that tomorrow. Or it comes out Friday. I'll be seeing the sneak preview of that tomorrow. But then beyond, so I mean, like, I was super stoked for Guardians and Winter Soldier, and we've got that stuff, and of course Days of Future Past. So like this big stuff that I was gearing up for is done. So obviously I'm super curious about Batman vs Superman, but past that, like, nothing's just got me super ultra jazzed yet. Like, I got to get closer to things, I think. I don't know.
I'm with you. I honestly can't think of another one right now.
Well, just sequels to things that have been announced. You know what I mean? It's mostly just sequel stuff. Like, I guess I'm looking forward to Ant-Man, but then it sucks that we lost Edgar Wright. So now it's like, I don't know what that's gonna be like, but whatever. So I don't know. I guess I was just really excited for this year, and I haven't looked much past this year.
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't realize that until just now, but yeah, I guess I've not looked that hard past it. Let's see. William Parcell. Boy, there's just a lot of questions about Justice League right now. I was wondering if you think Justice League will be able to pique the needed interest in the lesser-known heroes like Flash and Aquaman when they are sharing the screen with Batman and Superman. It seems like it would be harder for heroes to shine in a team film. Well, I mean, Avengers could have had that problem. I get, but I guess the issue there is, of course, obviously, this goes without saying, we got those singular characters first, and then we put them together. Yeah, I think that's definitely a cause for concern.
Yeah, I feel like the problem is that Warner Brothers does not feel like any of their heroes are going to carry a feature film unless it's Batman or Superman. So I mean, of course they have the TV shows, but I guess if they're going to sink all that money into a big budget feature, they feel like it has to be Batman or Superman. So we get Batman, we get Superman, we get Batman, Superman with Wonder Woman in it. And then who knows where it goes from there. So I feel like the problem is you're going to have a Justice League movie that's going to be about Batman and Superman. And I almost feel it's unavoidable. I mean, it'd be a better movie if they did something closer to what the Avengers attempted, successfully did.
Yeah, and somewhat in their defense, this is something I can be sympathetic towards, because Marvel is popular being Marvel. You know what I mean? Like, people look at Marvel and they go, here's an expansive universe that we like. This was true before we had Marvel movies, where you know, you could be a Thor fan or a Spider-Man fan or an X-Men fan or whatever it was, but like, you like Marvel. And I feel like, again, a lot of this is because of the inception of the characters and the way that it all ultimately came together. But there are plenty of people that are fans of Batman or of Superman or of even both of those characters, and even together, that couldn't tell you anything about the rest of the DC universe. They just don't care. And so the difficulty we've got here, of course, is we've got a DC cinematic universe forming around the big two that people would care about regardless of whether or not we were doing a DC universe. So, like, I can be somewhat sympathetic toward that. That's the difficulty. I mean, you look at the DC direct-to-video animated movies going all the way back to 2007. And what have we gotten? We've gotten Superman movies, we've gotten Batman movies, we've gotten Justice League movies, we've gotten a couple of Green Lantern movies that didn't sell very well, and the one time they went off the rails and said, let's finally do Wonder Woman, nobody bought it. And it was really good. And it's really sad that that happened. So, I mean, like, some of this is a consumer problem. You can't blame it all on the studio. If people aren't buying it, what are you going to do? Now, they've been too conservative about it. They've been playing it too close to the chest, but there have been places where they've attempted other things, and it's just been a matter of, well, not only is it that Superman and Batman are popular on their own, but they're so popular on their own. Yeah. Like, so popular. You know, I've always said, and I still say this, I've always said, you know, when people ask me, what are you more of a fan of, Marvel or DC, I say Batman. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are like that.
You know, I've heard a lot of people more and more recently that they're suddenly aware that comic books exist. I mean, of course they were aware that comic books existed, but now they're going, oh, this is like a viable blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so some of these people have seen the Avengers, and now they know the name Marvel, and they're aware of the name DC, but they've gotten to the point that they think if they like it, it's Marvel. And I've heard that a lot from comic book novices, where they say, now Batman's Marvel, right? Well, I like Batman, so why isn't he Marvel? And, well, and then I've even heard that about some of the lesser ones. Like, well, I like Wonder Woman. She's Marvel, right? No, she's not. I'm sorry, but that's not the way it works. So, I forgot what the original question was.
Well, I'm just saying that, like,
no idea what
for the longest time, I was on the bandwagon of maybe DC should have put a Justice League movie out first. And ultimately, it's kind of going to sort of feel that way anyway, because, yeah, we had Man of Steel, and yeah, it did okay at the box office, but it was really polarizing, and, you know, plenty of people didn't like it. So, like, a lot of people, if they don't like that movie, but they give Batman vs. Superman a chance and they like it, they're going to kind of ignore Man of Steel. And you're like, well, there was that thing. You know, Marvel didn't have that problem with Iron Man. Iron Man set the stage. Everybody liked that movie. Most people like that movie. So, you look at Batman vs. Superman, it's got the word justice in it. It's essentially the pre-Justice League movie. We kind of are starting there now. Like, that's kind of what we're doing. And like, I was for a long time on the bandwagon of maybe we should start there, just because that's counter to the way Marvel did it, and you wouldn't look like you were just kind of stealing from them. You just blatantly go, okay, it's a shared universe, and then we give, we deal out our singular characters. But what's interesting about it is, it makes more sense for DC to do singular characters first than it does Marvel, because that's how they started. Yeah. Because each of them were not conceived together. They all came from way different places. Many of them were owned by a different company first. Many of those, some of those characters were Charlton characters and of other companies, and so you know, like the Justice Society and people like that. So when you suddenly have DC just buy up all these properties and then put them in the same universe, they don't all fit together. You have to kind of force that puzzle together
Literally
with pieces that don't really fit together. So
with Crisis on Infinite Earths, they literally force people together.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that it seems like history is kind of repeating itself, where it was hard enough to get them together that way, and now we're trying to do it in movies again. Mm-hmm. In hindsight, completely in hindsight, it's too bad DC didn't chance this before Marvel did, and grab the bull by the horns and take advantage of this before it became really evident to people that don't know comic books that Marvel's the one that is a shared universe because it was conceived that way and it makes sense that way. And in DC, they're kind of forcing it and trying to make that work. And you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost too bad that DC didn't make a Batman Superman movie back in like 06 or something. Don't know if it would have worked. Who knows? You know, looking back on it. And also, I'm not glad about that because I'm glad I got the Marvel stuff from Guy because it's really good. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know, it's a really difficult kind of pitch because all those characters are just inherently incredibly... And I'm not saying that it can't be done wonderfully and it hasn't been before. Obviously, Bruce Timm didn't have any problem putting all these characters together. Yeah. And making that universe feel like a cohesive thing.
I feel like what DC needs to do is work on its branding a little bit, because right now they have like separate brands: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Justice League. And now
they have 3 of those brands in a title altogether, which maybe is them trying to do that, man.
And if they were to say work DC a little bit more and get people to realize that there is an umbrella here, that more things underneath DC, because that's essentially what Marvel did. I mean, they had that big Marvel banner before every one of their movies.
Well, DC does it too, but I don't think anybody's paying any attention to it.
And it's big, it's bold. I'm not trying to say that it's just red, but it's big and it's bold. And yeah. DC, it's kind of like the movie's the important part. We don't want you to get hung up on the fact that it's a comic book. And
okay, that's a really good point. But I also think that it's less the banner in front of it, because DC has that too. I think it's less the banner in front of it, and it's more Marvel's Avengers.
Yeah, precisely. So if we could do something at DC's The Flash.
Yeah, well, and that would be great, but I was going to say, can we not make the title for this upcoming movie any longer? DC's Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Like, I don't think we need to make that any longer than it is.
From the team that brought you DC's blah, 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 DC's blah. So if we could just do that, I think it would be a little bit easier. Like, you could even sell it. From the team that brought you Superman brings you The Flash.
Yeah.
You know? Why not?
Well, and I'm sure the advertising would say that.
Or from the company. Blah, 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 blah,
blah. 1 or 2 more. Robotters100. Hey, Cap, I know you've been back and forth with the X franchise, but do you have a run or creative team you're really fond of? And do you like where the X books are headed? Oh, also, have you and Vince read Ennis's The Boys? Just getting into that series, and wow. Now, I know you don't like that series.
Well, I have stuff to say about it.
Oh, okay.
But let's answer the first question first.
Well, I don't have like a favorite X-Men run, because as you said, I am kind of all over the place with X-Men, and like a lot of people, I got into X-Men with the animated series, so that's kind of my definitive X-Men. And then after that, it's kind of like X2. So X-Men, I like more on screen generally, but I love what Claremont I've read, and I love individual story arcs, you know. So yeah.
The X-Men stuff. Now, I've said stuff on camera before where people are kind of like, "How dare you not be a fan?" And I'm not going to call myself a fan of Whedon. I like Whedon, but the one story arc from the X-Men that I like the most is Whedon Cassidy.
Yeah,
because it's good. And that's the thing, though, is that the reason I say that is I don't have this unabashed love for something. I'm still trying to remain objective about it, but. It's good, so I would highly recommend that for anybody who hasn't read it. But The Boys, I would say about the first 30 to 50 issues of The Boys were either good or interesting. And at some point, I feel like Ennis just starts trying to shock people. And I don't think he was ever not trying to shock people. That was one of the fun things about the book. It was okay. But there's nothing wrong with having shock value, but what do you do with it? And at some point I feel like he's just working out his aggressions for superhero comics within that book, which I understand that was the point to begin with, but it's very aggressive and in your face, and it's less about the story and less about the characters and more about the violence and more about the shocking nature of the sexual depictions. So for those of you who are reading The Boys but did not read Herogasm, case in point. So yeah, that's a thing. It was The Boys Herogasm.
Oh no, I mean I heard it. I heard that.
And it was awful. And The Boys was okay, but Herogasm was not very good. And it was just kind of disgusting. And I went, you know what? You learned some really interesting things about your main guy, which it's been so long that I've already forgotten the main guy's name. He kind of looks like oh, I've already forgotten the actor's name from Shaun of the Dead. You know what I'm talking about?
I've still never seen that.
Whatever that guy's name is. Crap. I'm gonna as soon as we stop recording this, I'm gonna remember that guy's name and go, it was that guy. So
I feel like you're trying to tell me how to get someplace I'm never going to drive to.
I hate that when people are like, can you tell me how to get to Tony's house?
And then
take a left at Becky's.
What I don't like is when I tell somebody I'm going to go someplace and then they just immediately assume I need directions. And then they start giving me like really complicated directions and I'm not even thinking about it or memorizing it because I've got a phone with a GPS in it. Sorry.
I know how to make it to Crown Center. Or at least my phone does.
I don't mean to rely too much on technology, but you don't need to tell me how to get there because I'm not going to listen to you right now anyway because I don't have a pen and paper, and also, like my phone tells me if there's construction the way you want me to go. I don't know.
And don't tell me how to get to someplace via Becky's house. I don't know where Becky lives. Get off my back.
Last couple of questions. C-Power 1212. Serious question. Do you regret starting Spawn Year? That's a complicated question. No, I don't regret starting Spawn Year. I somewhat regret not having finished it yet. But when I say regret, I just mean I wish that could have happened. Not like, oh boy, if only I had done this and this and this.
Spawn 2 years instead of 1 year.
Yeah, well, but like, don't say it like that because Spawn Year is still Spawn Year. You get to the end of it, it's going to make perfect sense. So I mean, don't say that. But like, yeah, it's a thing called Spawn Year that took 2 years to make. It's like it's, you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, like the experiment was see if you can do 365 written reviews on camera in this like produced format with a storyline inside of it, and I could have done it if we hadn't had a costume. That's two big things. I could have done it if we hadn't had a costume, and I mean like and the second thing, I don't mean to make excuses, but my sanity required me periodically to quit reading that book. And I'm just telling it like it is. I'm just being honest. I could, and it's not just reading it. Like if I'd just been reading it, okay, but I also had to think about it and write about it, and it affected other things I did. Like part of the reason that I didn't put rewinds out and that I'm not right now is that I feel like it kind of dulls me a little bit because the writing is just. You can not only good. Ingest it doesn't so make any bad. Sense. And yeah, exactly. And so anyway, that's been a thing. But no, I don't regret doing it because I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about making cinematic kind of videos. I've met some really cool people through it. I've gotten some neat connections through doing it, and it was it was a really interesting experiment. And by the end of it, we're gonna have this this whole really expansive series. I'm very happy with the story, with my story. Like when you get to the end of it, I'm very proud of what it is. So I wish it hadn't taken 2 years to make, and I wish I hadn't had to put off other shows. But I appreciate people's patience in waiting for me because people have. And if they hadn't, I may have been more tempted to just totally quit. But it didn't break the channel. And I don't know. It feels like a second novel. It feels like I wrote another novel.
In some ways, I feel like Spawn here has opened up avenues for just other projects. Not necessarily to say via connections, but just to say like now we know that Geekvolution is capable of generating certain kinds of bigger things than we thought we would have. So now this documentary is going to come into existence. Maybe not necessarily because of Spawn Year, but it's happening now because of Spawn Year. You know.
And I also don't know that we would have been as like sure of ourselves with the documentary had we not done something like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and it let Vince and I kind of stretch our acting legs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. I'm not even in that show. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's it. My apologies. You look a lot like somebody else that's in that.
I just did that one cameo where I said bad things about you.
And then he has a not-so-serious question, which is, if pigs could fly, would it make bacon a rare commodity? Well...
Not with guns.
I was going to say, I mean, people still hunt pheasants. Like, there's plenty of birds that people hunt, and so I mean,
they'll just clip their wings.
Plus, if pigs could fly, would you assume that they could fly well? I mean, that's a thing.
Maybe they just have like little wings, you know?
Would they be less plump because they got more exercise? Is that a thing? Like would pigs?
It'd be leaner meat, and it would still be delicious.
Something nobody thinks about with the whole pigs fly thing, man, is that
let's get down to brass tacks here.
Don't sweat, and they have to roll around in the mud in order to sweat. Well, if they fly,
they would
they get too
fall.
They get too close to the sun. Like, they'd be a lot hotter because they get up close to the sun. So as long as it's overcast, they'd be okay. But more often than not, they wouldn't be able to stay in the air very long because they would need to go down and find mud or something to roll around in.
And then
also,
hard to fly.
That might mess their wings up and stuff. So, first of all, I think pigs would spend less time in the mud and more time just... They probably would, like, fight with ducks for ponds. Like, that's probably a thing. I don't know if pigs would, like, float right, or if they could swim. I guess I don't think pigs could swim. So I guess the real question is, if pigs could fly, does it mean that they also automatically could swim? That's
horses can swim. So I could see maybe a pig could.
Maybe. But otherwise, it seems like they would probably be kind of top-heavy, and they would just roll over, and then...
But, you know, pigs with...
I don't know.
Like giant pigs with all that growth hormone inside of them. Who knows?
I've never thought about this before.
I doubt they can fly away.
This is a very interesting idea. This is a very interesting topic here.
I think the practicality is you'll just build a cage over the top, and you'll clip their wings.
Also, we're just assuming that they have wings and that's why they could fly. They could be Kryptonian pigs.
That's a good point.
We don't know, you know. Kryptonian pigs. Well, anyway, everybody...
That sounds like a band. We're the Kryptonian pigs.
We're the Kryptonian pigs. Tell your friends.
Hit a rock.
I want to say thanks to everybody, as always, for asking us really cool, insightful questions.
Pigs can fly.
It seems like we talked mostly about DC Cinematic Universe today. If you have any, if you have your own opinions about that kind of thing, and I'm sure everybody does, feel free to leave comments about anything we talked about today, of course. And if you want to ask us a question, send us a PM to Geekvolution, or go to there's a link in the description. Go to that link. That is the announcement video for this in the first place. Feel free to add questions to that. We've already done 4 of these, and we still have quite a few questions to go, so we're going to keep going until we're done. Feel free to, as I said, ask some more questions, and I can't promise that we're going to get to everything, but we're trying to jump around quite a bit instead of just starting from the top to the bottom. So if you asked more than one question, hopefully at least one of your questions will get answered. We sure appreciate you. Thanks for watching. We have a really great time doing this. It's a lot of fun, and we will see you again next week. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince, reminding you to support your local hardware store.
Why hardware?
I don't know.
What does that have to do with pigs flying or comics or anything?
Well, if you got to build a dome or something to keep your pigs from flying away, I think you might have to go to your hardware store, or at least your local farm supply store or something.
Thanks for watching.